Well, let's start. Good morning. I'm happy to introduce Fabian Steinhauer. Fabian is a São Paulo short-term visitor of Mecila. I invite you all to visit our homepage, mecila.net. Mecila is a center, humanity center, founded by German government in São Paulo, and with a network with German institutions, Argentinian and Mexican institutions. And we have fellows, senior fellows, junior fellows, doctoral students, and also we have visitors, short-term visitors like Fabian. He is a privat docent in public law, legal theory and media of law at Goethe University in Frankfurt, with a work about the constitution and media. He has two PhD, one in Kulturwissenschaft with the work Regel und Fiktion, and a second PhD in law with Bildregeln. He got the Walter Kolb Prize for that last PhD. Fabian was professor in Weimar, Frankfurt, Gießen, Basel, Beijing, China, Moscow, I think. No. Also, no, not Moscow.
Not yet.
But he has close connections with Moscow. And mainly, I like to emphasize Recife, here in Brazil, of course. So, and we have to bring Fabian to USP 2025. We are planning something. He's researcher at the Institute Max Planck for Legal History and Legal Theory. His main research interests are image and law, legal cultural techniques, and rhetoric. Fabian has published many books. I only mention vom Scheiden, Geschichte und Theorie einer juristischen Kulturtechnik, Bildenregel, Studien zum juristischen Bilderstreit, und Gerechtigkeit aus Zufall, zur rhetorischen Evolution des Rechts. With Markus Krajewski, Fabian organized a collection of papers by Cornelia Wiesmann, Das Recht und seine Mittel. I'd like to mention also that Fabian has a very interesting Tumblr account, Unter dem Gesetz. Check this, his Tumblr with very good photos, but also reflections, experiences, also about his travel to São Paulo. Fabian is one of the most important names in Germany on cultural analysis of law. And I'm very happy, proud to have you here, Fabian. We met 10 years ago, and finally you are at my university. Welcome. You have the word.
We jump into the water. So once upon a time, Niklas Luhmann, who was a jurist, a legal theorist, and a theorist of those associations we call society, wrote a note for his notebox or slipbox. So he was writing notes very often, nearly every day, and he used to say, if I don't write one note, I write another note, or if I don't write a book, I write another book. So he wrote one note, and this note is about Gleichgewicht, which you may translate as equilibrium. Niklas Luhmann wrote about 270 notes about Gleichgewicht, which means he has had a special interest in associations that we call society and that have a special quality. They have Gleichgewicht. So he developed this idea of Gleichgewicht equilibrium later on with authors from South America and from cybernetics, and used the concept of homeostase. But this note is maybe from an earlier time. And this note, you see that he starts at the beginning of the chapter about everything that is linked to equilibrium. And so he always starts a chapter with the bibliographical data. So the first notes always just collect books and texts and the bibliographical data. And then the next note always starts with the word grundsätzlich, principle. And grundsätzlich, in principle, he writes about Gleichgewicht and says this is a model of mechanics. And in this note, he thinks about equilibrium that you may, Gleichgewicht that you may not only translate with with equilibrium, but also with Constantia, which is a Latin word, which means all these 270 notes may be a comment on texts like from Seneca, De Constantia, or text from Leon Battista Alberti, like De Constantia. So it's Constantia or constancy. You may translate equilibrium with balance. So he's a theorist of those associations we call society, and that are with balance, cum balanza, and not society sem balanza. And you may translate it with the word with a measure. So Gleichgewicht is equilibrium, constancy, balance, and with a measure. And on this note, he says that he has to think about this Gleichgewicht because it's important for those associations we call society. So before you ask or before you decide what somebody says, from my perspective, is always important to start with the question, how does he say it? And you see that I marked a black spot on the upper part of the note. He doesn't date the note. He doesn't date the note. He doesn't meet the note. He doesn't note the date. So he says what he says, but he does not measure the time of this note. We don't know when it was written. We just have the address. This is 80, 2, this is just the place inside the slipbox, but we don't know in which year, on which day, at what time he wrote this note. So he says what he says constantly and seemingly timeless. This note today, on this day, is important because this note finishes with the term of vague associations. So you know that this lecture is about the history and theory of vague associations, and the term vague associations I took from Niklas Luhmann. He writes that the authors before Niklas Luhmann, who wrote about this, they were not they were careless, let's say. They were unsorgfältig, not precise, careless, and when they wrote about equilibrium, they were fine with vague associations. That was enough for them, vague associations. He says this about all the authors that are there before Niklas Luhmann came. So he says, for me, vague associations are not enough. That's why it is possible to say that Niklas Luhmann has a theory of associations we call society that are not vague. They're not vague. What are they? They are stable. So, and now to something completely different. Yeah. So, Aby Warburg is one of the authors that was there before Niklas Luhmann came. Niklas Luhmann lived from 1866 from 1929. He has a lot of professional designations. In this lecture, we are looking at the Aby Warburg, who is a legal scientist and a polar researcher. So Aby Warburg is also a theorist of associations. Not only associations we call society, but also associations we call society. And he has what what Niklas Luhmann hasn't. So he has a history and theory of vague associations. And today I want to present this history and theory of vague associations with the example Aby Warburg. The main object I'm interested in, so my research the last 4 years that started in Receiver has dealt with the object you see behind me. This object behind me consists out of 2 parts. These are 2 tables. 2 tables, 2 Tafeln, I call Staats-Tafeln, state tables. Aby Warburg created them in 1929. The photos you see in the back are a reconstruction of these 2 state tables that was done only in 2020, only 3 years before. We knew how these state tables look because all the photographies and all the material you see on these tables is in the Warburg Institute archive. This is all the material that belonged to Aby Warburg and that he used in his archive, also in his Zettelkasten and in his Bibliothek and in his Photothek. And Aby Warburg created with this material Staats-Tafeln, which means tables that deal with the state. And not only with the state, but with the funding of the state. So these 2 Staats-Tafeln, state tables, present us knowledge. They reproduce knowledge about the founding of a Roman state. And they present us the knowledge of the founding of a Roman state, which seems to be one of the oldest and one of the newest Roman states. The states that before 1929 was called the Stato della Chiesa, the papal state, I think, in English. And in 1929, it was renamed in Stato della Città del Vaticano, the Vatican State. Aby Warburg shows on these 2 tables his knowledge about a Roman state, about the founding of a Roman state, we may say of the institution of a Roman state, the constitution of a Roman state, because it's constituted, but the main term Aby Warburg uses would be the restitution of a Roman state. It's a state that is reproduced and in which the oldest and the newest may appear. So this is the material I call the Staats-Tafeln, and you see on the Staats-Tafeln he deals with the so-called Patti Lateranensi, or Lateran treaties. These were the treaties between the Santa Sede, the Holy See, the Heilige Stuhl in German, and the Kingdom of Italy, Königreich Italia. And Aby Warburg designs these 2 tables as tables not only about the founding of a Roman state, but about a vague association. I will explain this. The lecture will have 2 parts. So in the first part, I want to explain how Aby Warburg became a legal scientist and a specialist for vague associations. As I told you, he has a high professional designation consumption. So he was called an art historian, he was called a theorist of culture, he was called an image scientist, and presenting him now as a legal scientist and a polar researcher gives two more professional designations to Aby Warburg that are not very popular yet, but maybe after this lecture it becomes more popular. So there are 4 steps in which Aby Warburg became a legal scientist and a polar researcher, which means a specialist for vague associations. And I've marked 4 years for this, so the year 1869, I will talk about this. I will talk about, he is in America, in the United States at that time, and returns to Germany in this year. The year 1902, he is in Florence at that time. The year 1912, he gives a lecture in Rome, which makes him a star, really a star in the art history. And we will finally talk about the year 1929 when he constructed these 2 state tables. This is the first part of the lecture. The second part of the lecture is a little bit shorter, and I'm asking the question, when and where does the history and theory of vague associations help? What for do we, I wouldn't say need this. I would say, what for do we do this? And the short answer is very easy because it's short. When and where polis is polos, vague associations help. So the term polis, you all know this Greek word. We would translate it maybe with city. We would even translate it even with state, which is linked to also status, stasis, stability. So, and the word polos is, you know, from the, for example, from the term polarity, North Pole, polemosophie. Maybe you know it from the word police and politics. This is a question about how you understand police and politics. So the polos is the place where everything, let's say, turns around. This is a polos. It's a turning place. So this is a polos. So when polos is polos, when the state is not standing still, but when the state turns around, or when things turn around, when things turn upside down, then vague associations may help. This is just a short answer. So let's begin with the first part, 1869. In 1869, Aby Warburg is still called an art historian, and nobody doubts it that he's an art historian because he just finished his PhD with great success in art history, and he wrote his PhD about Botticelli. And his PhD about Botticelli is important for 2 things. He wrote only, one may say, or mainly, about these 2 pictures of Botticelli. This is a Renaissance painting, early Renaissance painting, not very early, but still early Renaissance painting, done in Florence. Nowadays, you can see it still in Florence, in the offices, in the Uffizien. And the upper left picture is the birth of the Venus, and the lower right picture is the picture of the Primavera. So, and one important thing is that Aby Warburg started in this PhD a method that he himself was calling iconology, which means he saw the icon and the logos in it. So he saw the picture and the language in it, the picture and the words in it, the picture and maybe the books in it. Yeah? In fact, this was a writing by Poliziano, a Florentinian writer. So Warburg saw that Botticelli used a text to design this picture. So he saw through the image the text. It's like finding a reference. When you're a Tarantino knower and you're looking at a Tarantino movie, and something happens, and there's this nerd, this Tarantino nerd. This is a reference to this and that. So Aby Warburg was already a nerd. He knew the literature. Coming to Botticelli and see, okay, there's a painting by Botticelli, but I know the reference. And the reference is not a picture, it's a text by Poliziano. And he proves it in this PhD. So this is very interesting because the difference, he doesn't deny the difference between pictures and language, or pictures or images and words. But he doesn't give this difference a great distinction, not a great divide, because you may divide the pictures and the images, but the words may reappear in the image and the image may reappear in the word, even if you're always able to distinct the pictures and the words. This was the first thing he became a little bit famous for. That's why people later even called him the father of iconology, which, I mean, these father figures, people are obsessed with these father figures, so here we have this first idea that he is a father figure, but you have to see also the scene of art history at that time, and art history was mostly dealt with questions of style, which means to recognize, for example, to see, is it really a Botticelli? And to look at the style of the painting to judge if it's really a Botticelli or not a Botticelli. So you're looking at the hair and you see how is he painting the hair. You're not sure if it's a Botticelli, but you have another picture where you know this is surely a Botticelli. I know this. And the hair in this picture is painted like here. So if we know that this is a Botticelli, this must be a Botticelli too. These formal questions about style to identify authority, for example. And he did something else. He did this link between, let's say, form and the picture, and we may even say the content of the picture. The second, even maybe more important thing is, because now it becomes a little bit idiosyncratic, was that he saw special women in this picture. He called the nympha, or the nympha moderna. So he was referring on the upper left picture to the figure on the right. You see there is a figure, and this figure is, there's something blowing in the wind, and this is the woman. So her hair goes up, and the clothes goes up. So she is positioned in a meteorological situation. The wind is blowing. Strong wind. You even see the wind on the left side blowing. But he was mainly interested in this woman, in the nympha moderna. And he also saw this nympha moderna. In the other picture, the three dancing women, he also called nympha moderna. This is very important because for several years, or maybe even his whole life, he became obsessed of these figures. From these figures, later on, he developed an idea of Pathosformel, which means he associated these figures with an intense form of energy, motivation, or animation, or affect. This is the first thing. So they're not standing still. They're moving. And because they're moving the spectator. And they do it in an intense way. They're not calm. And in this moment, those figures with the high energy, with the upper level of energy occur, the painters grab back to old pictures to use to show these women. They don't invent them. He gave a very easy explanation at the end. These figures to paint is very complicated. It's very easy to draw somebody like this. But when it's like this, it gets complicated. And in this moment, the painters did the easiest solution. They just were looking at the Roman antiquities. Because on the sarcophagus, mostly on the sarcophagus, which is a vague object for flesh, it's dealing vague with flesh. Sarco is the flesh, and the phagus means it's vaguing the flesh, which means it sends the flesh from the earth to the sky or to the hell maybe. So there were these figures in Roman antiquity. You don't find them anywhere, but you mostly find them on the sarcophagus. So they just copied them. So this idea was always, when it gets intense, the Romans go back in time and take a formula for the solution. So here, this is maybe the best example to explain this. This is what he was dealing still with in 1869. This is Ghirlandaio's painting of the birth of São João. This is a special person, São João. You know this in Brazil. And you even know it better if you compare Brazilian parties with German parties. Because you are celebrating São João. We are not celebrating São João. So this is a very interesting picture for Brazilian-German relationship. And he was dealing with this picture. You also find this in Florence. And what does he see? There are a lot of figures in this painting that are stable, absolutely stable. For example, the mother of São João, stable, lying in the bed. All the other friends standing stable in the pictures. But one figure, the Ninfa Moderna, rushes in. You see her on the right side. Even in close similarity with the paintings of Botticelli. There she is again, the Ninfa Moderna. So rushing in, bringing in the motion into the picture. The emotion in the picture, the motion in the picture. So he was still working on that, on this Ninfa Moderna. So what does she do there? Sure, she's moving. In German, we would say, sie bewegt sich. She is moving herself. Und sie bewegt uns. She's moving the spectator. So we may translate it, she lets movement go through. Or the other word we use in German, if we don't say bewegen, we say regen. Sie regt sich. Sie regt uns, which for example means sie erregt uns. She stimulates us. Or sie regt uns an. She regt uns an. She gives us ideas. So this is the word regen. So in English, we would say she's moving or motivating. And now, very interesting in the English language, she reigns the picture, because she, in this term of eye catcher, is the most important thing in the picture. So she's reigning the picture, like a Regina, and she again is moving in a meteorological way. So she's reigning. This is the associations Aby Warburg did not in an explicit way. He doesn't use the word rain or rain. He doesn't speak English. We now may say, after 100 years, with a distance to Aby Warburg, we say, okay, he's thinking about meteorological problems, which means problems of bodies that appear and disappear in a hard to predictable way, and in a way that is unsecurable. So they appear and disappear like the clouds, for example, do, or like the rain does, or like a volcano does. This is the way Descartes talks about meteorology. Thomas Hobbes in the Leviathan, he mentioned, also in the Leviathan, he mentions meteorology as the subject for the knowledge about the Commonwealth. And he calls it, well, the subject of meteorology is our bodies that appear and disappear, that come and go. So he formulates it in a way that he says, well, they come and go as if it's not binding when they come, and it's not binding when they go. So the meteorological movement is part of associations, but associations that a lot of people think that are not associations, not the right associations, not the good, not associations like they should be, not stable enough, not constant enough, not with the measure we want. So this was the thing he was working still as an art historian in 1869. But what did he do? He traveled to America. He traveled to America for a very easy reason. His brother married in America. So he was traveling to New York, celebrating the marriage, and then once he's in America, he said, now I'll go to have a look how the others deal with these nymphological figures. So he went to New Mexico to see the very famous, in that time, already very famous ritual, already slightly touristical ritual, but still it was really hard to get to New Mexico there at that time. So the Hopi did a dance, a rain dance. A rain dance. So you know that New Mexico is a dry area, and they want to rain the rain. They want to get control over the rain, and what do? They dance. And in this dance, they take snakes. They grab snakes and put the snakes in their mouth, and then they put it down again. So in the upper left, you see one of the pictures Aby Warburg took himself of this dance, and he associated it in his archive with a European picture of handling the snakes, a very famous one. You see on the upper right, the so-called Laocoon, which is one of the main figures in European art history for the questions of what difference is there between words and images? What can images do what words can't do? What can words do what images can't do? There's a very famous text by Lessing who wrote a kind of canonical dogmatic knowledge about this, saying that there's a great difference between words and images, and he explained it with the Laocoon. Aby Warburg maybe saw this another way, like Lessing did, but he associates this questions of movement, stability, rain, again with the difference between words and images, and collected other pictures around it. So in the lower left side, you see a table, also a table, which means a tabelle in this case, but a tabelle that may be turned around. And on the upper picture, you see now at 12 o'clock, there's somebody grabbing the snake, and this tableau is from a calendar. It's a German calendar from the 11th century. So he was thinking, okay, they're having the snakes. Here we have the snakes, and he presented a picture, a Baroque picture from a church with a famous story from the Bible, the book Genesis, where also the snake plays a special role. This was all he did. So collecting material and writing nothing about this. Writing something about this, writing a lot about this, but only notes for also his notebox and his slipbox. I will not present this now, because now it gets really interesting. He comes back from America, and he is working since 8 years already at his second book. So he has finished his PhD in 1892. Now we have 1896. Yeah? So 4 years now that he has to write a second book, but he already started to think about a second book when he wrote his PhD. Yeah? But he changes the concept all the time. Yeah? But now, this year, it becomes hot, this project. He suddenly seemed to have an idea what he's going to do. Yeah? So he returns to Germany. Let me start this in May. So, and the first thing he does after coming back from the journey is he makes another journey. So he has just finished his big journey that a few years later will become very, very, very famous. But at that time it's not famous yet, but it becomes the Great America journey from Aby Warburg. But afterwards he does a second journey that is not famous at all. Because he doesn't go to America, he just takes a ship and goes through the North Sea from Germany to Denmark and Norway, Sweden, and back to Germany. Just a small. After the big journey, he takes a small journey. He again thinks, I have to think about how the others deal with pictures. But this time, he doesn't take an other who is far away, but is very close. He takes a jurist with him. So in the notes that he's working on the book, he's working already on this second book. So we have all the notes about his very famous journey. Then the very famous journey stops. And the next entry you find after his famous journey is 26th of June, 1896. Fanø, this is an island in Denmark. Bronchitis, he's ill. He was in the hot weather, now he's in the cold weather, he's hot. And then Melchior. And Melchior is Sully George Melchior. This is the brother of Karl Melchior. And the two brother Melchiors are very important jurists for the Warburg family. Sully George Melchior, the guy he mentions here, he took on the journey. So he said, I'm taking journey. Sully, please come with me. Sully is not so rich. Aby Warburg is really rich. He think, come with me, I'll pay the journey. I need you on this journey. Melchior is a jurist. Aby Warburg is an art historian. So, and then the next note you see, 22nd 07 1869. This is, I made a mistake here. This is 22nd 06. So in this notebook he mixed the dates. So at that time, he said, Georg Melchior machte mich auf folgende symbolische Rechtshandlung im römischen Recht aufmerksam. Mancipatio. So Melchior, he caught my attention for a symbolic action, symbolic legal action in Roman law, mancipatio. So he takes Melchior with him to have a professional talk about legal history, about Roman law and legal theory. And as you see from this very, very short note, Georg Melchior becomes like a kind of informant for Aby Warburg, and Aby Warburg uses in his notes the word symbolische Rechtshandlung and mancipatio. The mancipatio is a technical term, I will explain later, but he calls this technical term from Roman law, he calls it symbolische Rechtshandlung. You may call it in a lot of words. The mancipatio is a lot. He uses a phrase that we know from Friedrich Karl von Savigny, from one of the most famous texts from Friedrich Karl von Savigny, again another father, the father of the Historische Rechtsschule, who published a very famous text nearly 90 years earlier about vom Beruf unserer Zeit für Gesetzgebung und Wissenschaft. Well, it's a text about the role of the historical school for the knowledge about law. And this text from Savigny starts with the symbolische Rechtshandlung and with the mancipatio. So Melchior or Warburg, I think they have read Friedrich Karl von Savigny on this journey, or afterwards, or before Yeah? But Friedrich Karl von Savigny starts his book on legal science with the symbolische Rechtshandlung and the Emancipatio because he has a very romantic idea. Yeah? In early times, so close to the Ursprüngen, to the foundations, yeah, the Romans didn't have so abstract concepts and words, and they used rituals and images at the beginning. So protocol, for example, gesture, or objects, and this is older than concepts. These techniques, these, let's say, wordless, or concept, where concepts are weak, let's say, where concepts are weak, and the gesture and the body and the movement is strong, they are older than, this is a romantic idea. And that's what they are talking about on this journey. So, the Emancipatio, now what is the Emancipatio? We know about the Emancipatio mainly because of classical text, right, from Gaius Institution. So you're all legal historians. I don't have to explain you how Gaius is, but a classical Roman jurist, and he wrote the institutions, which are institutions, which means it's a Lehrbuch. And in this book, he mentions also quite at the beginning, he mentions the Emancipatio. Est aut emancipatio supra quoque diximus imaginaria quaedam venditio, quod et ipsum ius proprium civium Romanorum est. Who will translate it, please? No, okay. There is the Emancipatio, where people say about she's imaginary venditio, an imaginary venditio. Yeah? Venditio may be a sale, it may be a blaze, it may be a praise. Yeah? So in Germany we would say ein bildlicher Verkauf, an imaginary Verkauf. Yeah? So, and it's the own right, the proper right of the Roman civil person. The proper, I would translate it with proper right. Yeah? So an imaginary sale, an imaginary blaze. I think we have to stay with the word venditio, and the verb for this is vendere, which some people say is closely related to wenden oder eine Wendung, a turn. So, what is the Emancipatio? It's very easy. When the Romans now the easy explanation. When the Romans, we are two Romans here, somewhere at me, and I want to sell him this bottle of water, I don't have to use the Emancipatio. We just make a deal and it's okay. So this bottle of water is not important. If I'm going to sell Melanie to Samuel, I have to use the Emancipatio. Now it becomes important. Now it really becomes. There is a special value in selling Melanie. Now I have to use the Emancipatio, and what do I do? So I stand. No, sorry. Changing role. I'm buying Melanie. A much better example. So I place my hand on the shoulder of Melanie, and I use a special phrase. I say that Melanie shall be my property, shall be taken by me as property. More or less, this is the phrase. Samuel must not answer. So it's a one-sided communication. I talk, and I say, I claim something. I claim her. And he just has to stay there, say nothing, not denying, even not defending something. Just be still. Then I have to take a copper, a piece of copper. Let's say this is copper. and there has to be another Roman servant, civil guy from Rome, yeah, Juan. He has to stand there with a scale. With a scale, he just has to say, we know this from the justice, has to stand with a scale, and I have to take this copper and touch with this copper the scale, so it makes ping. Yeah. I think we know this a little bit from the Roman Catholic Church when they transfigure the blood into the flesh of Christ. Now you go, pling, yeah, or a prong. We need 5 other people who watch this. And this moment, Melanie is my property. This is Emancipatio. Yeah? So they're talking about this. The Emancipatio is an imago. Gaius calls it an imago. Gaius says it's an imaginary sale. Yeah? We may say, oh, why is it imaginary? Afterwards, she's really mine. We're not just pretending that she's mine afterwards, she's really mine. Nevertheless, he calls it an image. Which means image is not something that is associated by Gaius with not being real, or not happening, or being just a play or something, just a metaphor. No, it's absolutely real. Nevertheless, he calls it an image, which means our idea of image, we have to rethink about this. Yeah? So it's an actio, which means an action. It's an act. And it's this interesting form of venditio. Yeah? And it's a formula, which means it is close to the pathos formel that Aby Warburgs thinks about. It's even close to the pathos formel because the pathos formel is only used when there's high energy, when there are high emotions. Then you use the old formula. And Gaius says, the Emancipatio you only use when you need a very important, when you're moving something very important from person A to person B. When only in important things, then you take back the Emancipatio, then you use the Emancipatio, and Gaius also say, and this is an archaic old formula. So even Gaius says, we don't know where it's from. It was always there. So some explain the copper, the idea of the copper. They say, yeah, this is so old. So it's from that time when I could really buy somebody for a piece of copper. Now I have to pay millions to buy another person. But 1,000 years ago, one person was just a copper. So old is it? So old. So this is a kind of similarity between what they're talking about. This is the moment, 1869, when Aby Warburgs legal science starts with talking about the Emancipatio, talking about an imago and actio, and maybe venditio in another way than sale, maybe in the sense of blaze or praise. So 1869. He doesn't publish anything about that, but he's writing a lot of notes and starting to buy legal books. So a few years later, 1902, we are in Florence, and Aby Warburgs is already a few years in Florence working on law and images. He's again working on this painting by Ghirlandaio. So this time he's not interested in this figure on the right side. Now we have in mind that this figure on the right side, he calls Nympha Moderna. He at that time already calls pathos formel, has a strange similarity to the Emancipatio. But at that moment he's not interested in that. He's interested in a much more common idea. So the Cappella Tornabuoni in Santa Maria Novella was painted by Ghirlandaio in a time where in the city of Florence you just couldn't paint anywhere, because all the places where you paint, there is already something. So especially when you don't paint on paper but on walls. So no wall is free anymore. Yeah? It's full. The city is full. You're not creating from nothing. Yeah? So when you're painting something, something else is disappearing. Yeah? So maybe just a white wall, but maybe somebody wanted this wall to be white. Yeah? So this is painting. There's already a conflict in painting. Yeah? And Giorgio Vasari, an Italian art historian, he in his Vita, in his book about the lives of Italian artists, he wrote the story of Ghirlandaio, the painter of the Cappella Tornabuoni, also already as a law struggle. Yeah? So okay, this was a law conflict. Yeah? Because the Cappella Tornabuoni didn't belong to the Tornabuoni before. Yeah? And they made a deal with the older owners of the Cappella, yeah? And then they tricked them. Yeah? So because Ghirlandaio, he paints for sure, now we have already 1486, and something new happens. Yeah? Ghirlandaio paints the Tornabuoni inside the chapel. Private persons, banquiers, guys making money, not very reliable, or maybe not very with a high status. Yeah? So they're just selling things in a maybe already way that people think, oh, this has to be limited. And suddenly they appear, this Tornabuoni appear in the Tornabuoni chapel. So Vasari already said that this was a problem. There was rain dropping inside the Santa Maria Novella. So the walls got wet. And the old owners couldn't pay the restoration of the chapel anymore. So the Tornabuoni said, we will care for the restoration, let us do it, and we pay, and we decide which artist will paint it, and we will decide what he paints. So, and then, they're having this workplace, it's closed, he's working there, and then they open the chapel again, and the old family sees, well, where is our coat of arms? They had just their coat of arms at the wall, which means just the, I don't know, you have everywhere coats of arms here in Brazil. Yes. Yeah. Yeah. And it disappeared. Yeah. From the wall, and now there are the Tornabuonis, and they say, sorry, we didn't talk about it, but the Tornabuoni say, yeah, your coat of arms is still here, but they place it at a very small place where nobody sees it anymore. No? So, and Vasari already told this as a struggle. The thing Warburg did at that time was he was the first one to go to the archives and not reading literature about art, but looking at the contracts and about ownership and patron rights. This is in the organization of a chapel. So you sell the chapel, so you give to someone the patron right. He pays for it. He gets a patron right. He has to care for the chapel, and he has some influence on representing. Aby Warburg describes this. He says Vasari was wrong. He made a mistake about the old family. I went to the archive. I had a look. I can say now the Dominicanians, the Dominicana, the brothers who care for Santa Maria, they really tricked everybody. They just sold the chapel twice. They took twice money. So he had a proof of all these contracts. So he combined just art history and a legal history, a criminal case, but he told a very, let's say, common liberal story, and said, well, this is the birth of the modern individual and the modern private capitalistic society, and it means that the private subjects, they become visible in a private way, and they even become visible in the public sphere. What was not, and he interpreted it as a history of liberation. So this is what he does. So in this time, in 1992, we have a very, let's say, traditional Aby Warburg working on law and history, but this is nothing about vague associations and nothing about polarity. So 1912, now comes the lecture in Rome, where Aby Warburg becomes a star. I will keep this very brief. So in the Warburg goes to Rome to give a lecture on the Palazzo Schifanoia in Ferrara. And the Palazzo Schifanoia is a building for administration, for a kind of administration that has public functions and private functions. Well, so you can distinct the public functions and the private functions in the Palazzo Schifanoia, but they both take place in the Palazzo Schifanoia. So we can have a quarrel about if this is differentiated or like Niklas Luhmann say, out-differentiated. But you find private administration and public administration in Palazzo Schifanoia. And on the walls there were paintings like the one. This is a part of the Palazzo Schifanoia on the wall that the art historians in the 19th century could not read anymore. They were unable to read these walls, to decipher this. They said, we don't know what this is. This is strange. We don't know the figures. For example, on the right side, we have three main parts on this side, and on the right side, in the middle level, you have three figures, and on the left figure, you see a guy, and he has a special belt. And the artist says, we don't know who it is. We can't say, is it a mythological figure? Is it not a mythological figure? Is it a historical figure? We don't know anything. So, and Aby Warburg entered the Palazzo Schifanoia and said, well, this is easy. Don't you see this? These are three calendar systems. So this is a calendar system in three layers that come from three different regions, from a very far east, from a closer east, and from Rome. So we have three different measures of time that are linked to the three different places, geographical spaces, and we have a movement from east to west that is organized here in layers, like older, for example, like archaeological logic, east, and then it gets more to the west, to the top. So, and he says, and this is sure, every civil servant has on his table a calendar, and in the calendar you always find a synopsis of calendars. So, because the civil servant, he has to recalculate different measures. So he has a calendar that says when it's 10 o'clock in Sao Paulo, it's 15 o'clock in Germany. Or what is here is a pound, are there 2 kilograms, and so on. This is a synopsis and a calendar system. So, and he became a star by that. And he became a star because he had this knowledge about astronomy and astrology that the art historians didn't have. So astronomy is a knowledge with, let's say, a high academic status. We say, okay, this is rational astronomy. But astrology, this is a lower epistemology. This is magic. This is some crazy stuff from barbaric people. So in the academic sphere, in that time, people just lost the knowledge of the astrological pictures. But in both spheres, in the astronomical and the astrological sphere, you both find rationality and irrationality. You find things that fit and that don't fit. And he had this knowledge. Why did he have this knowledge? He's from a Jewish family, and his parents were still Orthodox, and had still a lot of knowledge about the Kabbalistic literature, for example. So, and the whole family has a lot of history about interpreting techniques that are other interpretations. I will not go on this today, but and he especially he was a specialist on calendars at that time, and this is also a history about Roman law that also lawyers or legal scientists also don't know much about. So when we talk about the history of public law in Rome or administration law in Rome, people may say, well, Roman law is civil law, it's criminal law, and then it's canonical law. It's hard to say if there is really administration law in Gaius. What is their administration law? Hard to say. And in the Corpus Juris Civilis, hard to say. But Warburg, he was not looking at the books. He was looking at the calendars, at the files. And the calendars and the files and the lists and the tabellas. This is also knowledge about the law. So the files are the everyday life of the jurist outside the academic sphere. So he was turning his focus on a lower epistemology that at that time, for example, was called Hilfswissenschaften allenfalls. Hilfswissenschaften and historical law. But you were not trained in this at the legal faculty. And he was already in 1912, he was a really specialist, which means at that time, his legal science has turned into a science about time measure and about a movement that has to do with security and unsecurity. It has to do with meteorology. For example, it's a question, you have to have a calendar to know when do I plant the seeds and when do I not plant the seeds. Because when there will be too much rain and not enough rain enough, when will I start war? Because maybe when it's there too much water in the fields that I can't travel with the tanks to Russia, for example. And when is the ground dry enough that we can go with our tanks to Russia? This is a meteorological problem, and it has to do with a movement that is a polar movement, because the planet is turning, and all the planets are turning around. So at this moment, so in 1912, we already have an idiosyncratic legal scientist that does something else than all the other legal scientists do. Now we are in the year 1929, which is already the last year of Aby Warburg. He dies in October of that year, and he starts this year well, hard to say where exactly. He's in a hotel in a town we call Rome. But at that moment, we don't know, is this Italy or is this Stato della Chiesa? Because this question is not solved yet. This question is in the air since 1817, since the Italian national state founded itself and acclaimed Rome as a capital of Italy, but there's still the Pope in the Vatican, and he didn't step back. He didn't say, okay, you can have it. So he's just saying nothing. And the people even say, is he a prisoner of Italy or is he not a prisoner? The Pope is not leaving the Vatican. Several popes are not leaving the Vatican in that since 1817. So Aby Warburg is in a hotel in a city we call Rome, but in a juridical sense, in a legal sense, we don't exactly know in which state he is at that moment. So, and he's working on the Atlas. There's a very famous Mnemosyne Atlas, and the Mnemosyne Atlas is an atlas about the history of images, history and theory of images. And you see, for example, here on table number 7 of this atlas, so this atlas, it just consists of these tables you see here, for example, on the left side, it's always a black table with pictures that are collected on it. And here on table 7, for example, you see this example, and I made it big again. This is exactly the material he knows, and that the reason is he became a star in art history in 1912. So this image is from the calendar or chronograph of Philocalus of 345. So it's really hard to say what kind of material it is. It's a calendar, it's files. So the reproduction of this material always changes the border of this material. This material, the chronograph of 345, and another material, the so-called Notitia Dignitatum, they're the most important material if you want to know something about administration in Rome, but the material always is rearranged through history until now. There's always a border around the material, but the border of this material always hops around. We have a new edition of the Notitia Dignitatum, and the new editor says, well, we have to take this out and another thing in. Yeah? So this is through the whole history of this material. So this material has not the consistency of a book. Yeah? It has not always a stable border. Yeah? It is a vague association. It's a file, not like files are. No? Files, they are there to be changed, to be changeable, movable. No? So he knows this material. We see on Tafel number 7, I gave another example. This is the chronograph. You need the chronograph to administer Rome, to measure time and to say when will we do what. When, for example, will we sign treaties? When, for example, will we sign the Lateran treaties? Will we do this in February? Will we do this on December 24th? And then the secretary says, well, December 24th is a bad idea. This is Christmas. We can't do this on this day. No? Well, shall we do this on Sao Zhao? Oh no, not on Sao Zhao. This is a wild night. This is midsummer night. This is when earth and sky. Oh no, we will not do this on Mars. Let's do it in February. People are calm. Let's do it in February. This is the knowledge you know. So he knows this very, very well. He's a specialist. So you see now the technique is very important he used. You see here, for example, table 1 and table 2. Yeah? And the way he arranges the material. These are vague associations. It's absolutely natural that you look at it and you just, it seems to you that there is no connection between the things. Yeah? This is very important. There are connections, but they're not there by themselves. And if they are there, they're not stable. These are vague associations. The associations come and go. And he arranges, for example, on table 1, you see on the top level 4 pictures, and these are 4 pictures of the same object, but from different angles, and turning this object around. It's a liver, and it's a liver out of a metal. So it's a training liver that the haruspices used when they trained how to tell the future. So you tell the future because you're cutting an animal, and then you take the liver and you're spreading it on the table, and then you say, okay, now it's the best time to start the war. Or, oh no, not now. Shall we kill Caesar now? No, not now, later. So, and these are the objects you're training with. You have to turn them around. And Aby Warburg places them on the table by turning them around. You see this on table 1. On table 2, you also see on the upper right side objects that you have to use. Reading here is not just signifying, but reading here means also moving the object, turning the object around. And you see one very famous object on the upper right side. This is the Atlas Farnese. So it's himself an atlas. So he says, my atlas is like the atlas. He's carrying a world in his back. And he, in German, it's a very nice phrase, hat die Welt im Rücken. This is how Thomas Melle calls this problem of polarity. If you have a problem with polarity, for example, you're bipolar, you have the earth in your back, and this earth, du hast die Welt im Rücken means you have it in your back, but you have it in the movement, you have it in the moment when it rückt, when it steps forward or moves forward or maybe backward. This is the problem of a polar character, for example, but it's also the problem of calendars and planets. So this is his knowledge, his legal science in 1929. You see here, so that he's operating with tables and with pole objects Yeah? So pole objects, the tables he uses are pole objects. Yeah? Pole objects are objects that operationalize polarity. Polarity is a movement in which turns and tilts, swifts, slings, and snares occur. This is a special movement, a precise form of movement. Not every movement is a polar movement. In this movement occur turns, tilts, swifts, slings, and snares, then it's a polar movement. And for Warburg, it's a problem because when these things occur, it's a meteorological problem. The movement is not easy to calculate, and it stays unsecured. So tables, like the ones Aby Warburg use, are pole objects when and if they operationalize polarity. So there are a lot of examples for pole objects. So very important pole objects. You see the clock. This is a pole object. It's turning around. And why is there a polar movement? I know that tomorrow at 2 o'clock it will be 2 o'clock. But I only know that at 2 o'clock will be 2 o'clock. What will be at 2 o'clock stays insecure. Yeah? So I have a higher form of rationality in this, and an absolutely, well, I could say without reason. Yeah? But the reason in it seems to be a little bit of empty. Yeah? Why do I have to know when it is tomorrow 2 o'clock, when I don't know what will be at 2 o'clock? Yeah? It doesn't explain anything, but nevertheless, it may explain anything, but it explains. So it has this high form of precision, yeah, and let's say exchangeability. It's not empty, yeah, this knowledge, yeah, but it's a higher form of precision that is associated with a high form exchangeability. Yeah? So clocks are these pole objects. Doors are wonderful pole objects. So they have a pole, you can open them and close them. When it's too hot, you can open them. When it's too cold, you can close them, or other way around. When somebody is in front of this room we don't want here, we can close it. When we want people to can open it. Wonderful pole object. So windows, the same, are pole objects. Tablets and notebooks, pole objects. Calendars, very old pole objects. And the folding chair you're sitting on, this is a pole object. If this gets too much for you, you can go, and the chair goes, and you can go. If you want to come, you can put it down and say, okay, I'll stay here. So this is an object that doesn't solve the question, that should not master absence by presence, but it shall handle movement, polar movement. And these are very absolutely important objects for Aby Warburg. So these are the last two tables of Aby Warburg's Mnemosyne Atlas. And these are pole objects. So these are tables, you can turn, and in these turns there may appear tilts, swifts, slings, and snares, and they occur on the table to operationalize these outside the table, for example, in real life. So these tables, they deal with the lateran treaties. What do they do? Do they explain the content of the lateran treaties? Maybe. Do they decide if it's a good idea to sign these treaties or a bad idea to sign these treaties? Maybe. Do they guarantee if the requirements of this contract was fulfilled or not fulfilled? So do we have a contract or do we have not a contract? Maybe. But in all these cases, only if the questions of polarity arise in this moment. So if the requirements of a contract are, for example, moved, yeah? Or if the question how to value this contract is moved. So on one day, it seems as a good idea to sign this contract. On the next day, it was a bad idea to sign this contract. Yeah? So you may use this table to operationalize this form of knowledge. I have to come to an end slowly, but we're only at the second part. So when and where, so when does this history and theory of vague associations, this is a term I used at the beginning, did help, and it helps when and where polis is polos. So let me finally come a little bit closer to this table. So table 78 is a table that you have, that it's wise to read as a protocol about a protocol. So Aby Warburg here is showing a protocol. He's showing a diplomatic protocol. He's showing the protocol of the secretaries of the Holy See and the Kingdom of Italy signing a contract. So we have here a double meaning of protocol. We have here the meaning of protocol in the sense of writing down what happened. You see here in a very easy order that goes from top down and from left to right, like we write. We see columns and lines, and we see what has happened. What has happened in Rome at the moment when a new Roman state was founded. So we see on the first column the signing of the contract. This is the first column on the left side, starting from the top down, coming closer with the pictures. First you see the table and a lot of persons sitting at the table. Then the camera moves towards the table, comes closer, and then a third picture coming even closer, showing Pietro Gaspari, the Cardinal State Secretary, in the moment of signing the contract. On the left side stands the protonotarius, the figure in the church that prepares all the papers and makes the date. He decides when to sign the treaties. In the middle you see Pietro Gaspari, and on the right side you see Mussolini sitting with his hands folded. You see what has happened, and you see how it happened. So you also have a choreographic order in this, moving bodies, representatives that come and go, vorübergehen to each other. In the middle line, you see 1 day later, and in the next column, you see 1 day later the celebration of the signing of the treaties. And the third column, you see the ratification in June in Rome, and in the fourth column, it gets a little bit divided now. You have a block of 4 diplomatic writings. Now the image again has turned into writing suddenly. The photography has turned into a telegram. And you see again secretaries and representatives celebrating the signing of celebrating the ratification at that time. And then the last picture on this table, you see again Pietro Gaspari on the rooftop of a gasoline station and parking house where you can park your cars in Rome. So you see what's happening, and you see how this is happening. And for Aby Warburg, this is very important, especially how is it happening, how are the pictures moving, in this case, in a very, let's say, still stable way, predictable way, measurable way, where this is really, this is how the calendar maybe also looked like from the protonotarius. Borgonini de Cunha, 12 Uhr, the photographs come in, we'll take this picture, then 2 minutes later they move there, they move. This is the way how you rationalize, in a rational form, organize this event. So on the second part, it already gets complicated. Yeah? So we now have an order, yeah, that shows a lot of pictures from different times, dating back to Giotto. The oldest picture in this table is Giotto picture here on the lower left side. And the newest one are newspapers from Hamburg in July and August 29, so long afterward, after the signing of the treaties from Hamburg. This is not Rome anymore, now it's Hamburg. You have one easy part in this table. This is this, I have marked it now, this middle line. We can read this as middle line. This is a clear column in the middle. Yeah? And on this middle line, it starts with the picture of samurai making a beheading. Yeah? So what do they do with the sword? They do like, they make a movement that goes like, in a very rational, technical, and cold, and limited, and highly precise way. They make a cut. And then under these, also making a clear cut in the middle of this table, you see pictures of people walking in a line over the Petersplatz in Rome, place St. Peter. So this middle line you may read again as a pole. Yeah? So around this middle line you can circulate this table. You can't do this with table 78, but table 79 you can turn around. Yeah? So on the left side, how we see it now, we have antiquity, old times, like in the Emancipatio, the old times, the archaic times. And on the left side, we have the modern times. On the left side, we have Rome. In the moment he constructs this table, he's already in Hamburg. So Rome is far away. And on the right side, we have Hamburg, close to Aby Warburg. But this is already organized. You can turn it around. You can see it, for example, at the female figure on the left side of the biggest photography. There's a female figure standing like this, and on the other side, this figure stands another way around. It's from another painting, yeah. But the painters, they always use a formula, so they're always copying this formula. In this case, this movement, highly motivated, animated, stipulated. Yeah, in the Raphael picture, she's just praising that there is a wonder going on. Yeah, and the small count, yeah, you see the same figure like this way. So this is supposed that he's using an object where everything can be turned around. This is the way what reading means here. Yeah, it means reading is not just using your eyes and your head. It's using your whole body, and using your whole body in contact with the object. Yeah? So if I read a book, yeah, for example, it's maybe rational in Warburg's sense to read a book like this. To turn away from the book. For several times. Yeah? Maybe I shall not read further now, yeah? So I turn away. Yeah? And then maybe it's the right time to turn further, and now I read again. Yeah? And it's good to read it now. But now comes special pressure. So it's good to turn away. Or maybe it's wise to use an object like this, to read the front side and then the back side. So, or maybe with written language, it's hard to do, but the stars, with the stars, it's easy, but to turn around like this. So in January, I read, for example, a constellation like this, and in June, I read it like this, and this is rational to read it both ways. For example, I can say, oh, now it's June because the figure is like this now. Oh, it's time to plant the seeds now. So, but this is another reading than operating with writing. So, and the last possibility to read this picture is also very, very precise. he uses a curve that occurs in the picture of Raphael. Raphael is painting there also a founding moment, not founding of the Roman state, but he's painting a Missa, and the Missa from Bolsena. And the Missa from Bolsena is very important for the Roman Catholic Church because this is the founding moment of the Corpus Christ celebration. Yeah? So the Missa Bolsena happened in 1200. Sorry, I should know the exact date. I don't know it now. So a priest was celebrating the Missa. He didn't believe in God anymore, the writings say. But nevertheless, he was celebrating the Missa, he was breaking the bread, and blood dropped down on the corporale, on the cloth. Yeah? And he said, oh, it's real. Yeah? The dogma is real. This is really the body of Christ. And this is a wonder. This is a wonder. And because of this wonder, the Roman Catholic Church founded the Corpus Christi celebration. This is linked to the moment in which the Roman Catholic Church designed itself as a juristische Person, as a legal person, as an artificial body. So to Kantorowicz and other historians say this occurred, this wonder, as an image for the very abstract idea that not only the human body is a body and a person and a corporation, but this administration, this very strange administrations with thousands of heads and very far away, and something is present and something is far away. This is also like a human body, like a natural person, but it's only artificial. And there are mechanics and there are rules how this also functions in a rational way. So this is a very important founding picture. Raphael has painted in the Vatican, and Aby Warburg uses the architecture of this painting to place all the other pictures in a movement around this that we may call elliptical. Elliptical in an astronomical sense, so it's the movement of the planets. That's the way planets move, and that's why we have winter, spring, and not in Receiver, there's always summer, but in other places we have winter and summer and so on. And it's a rhetorical elliptical movement because it seems as if the line is blurred. It is not blurred, but an elliptical speech is when I miss some words. You understand everything, and even my speech gets better when I speak elliptically. But nevertheless, not all the words are there. So the syncope, the Brazilian music, the syncope is, I think, a good example for an elliptical movement. It gives this stop, and then suddenly it goes on again. This is an elliptical movement. It goes so it goes. So the energy sometimes is holding back, and then it's pushing forward again. This is an elliptical movement. So in German we call this Kreisen. Kreisen, and by this Kreisen we mean kehren, like wiederkehren, umkehren, einkehren, auskehren, but also like in zehren or like verkehren, but also verzehren, which means eating, vergehen. So these vague associations are eating associations. But we also say kreisen, kehren, or kreischen, which means this is this is the speak, the language of an elliptical movement. And who does this, for example? Who speaks like that? Those subjects, we call in German Säuglinge, they speak like that. And they speak like that when they want to eat. And then they get the milk. That's the way. This is a strange form of language, but very, very precise. absolutely precise. No? The distinction between noise and language is there, yeah? But it's alienated to the way we distinct noise and language. So the Latin word for it would be vagire, for this form of movement. So it's a vague movement. And the Greek word for it, verb, would be phagein, like in anthropophagia. So, and this is the way he presents us the Lateran treaties. So, why does he do this? I'm coming really to the end now. Yeah. So, why did they sign the Lateran treaties? Why did Mussolini sign the Lateran treaties? There's one very easy reason why Mussolini signed the Lateran treaties, or why he organized this. Yeah, he was an enemy of the Roman Catholic Church, but in that moment, in 1929 or 1928, he wanted credibility, international credibility. Yeah? So, and he thought, if I'm about to solve the Roman question, I will get a huge international credibility. Yeah? So Aby Warburg, who is from a banking house, he says, I know what credibility means. Yeah? I know how guys present when they come up and want to have credibility. I'm from a credit house. Yeah? So, and Aby Warburg places the Missa from Bolsena, the big picture of Raphael on this painting, because he's in Rome, yeah, and he traveled from Rome to Orvieto, where you nowadays find the Corporale. There you find this piece of clothes with the blood from 1280. We can go there next week. It is all true. It is all true. There is the cloth. It's a diplomatic material. It presents the authenticity of the dogma. Yeah, we can go there and see, oh, really, the blood is really there. Yeah? Warburg was traveling to Orvieto to see this. Yeah? To have did Raphael make something up or not? And he comes back, yeah? And he comes over the street and he notes in his diary, this is the place where they found the corpse of Giovanni Matteotti. So, who is Giovanni Matteotti? The guy who was killed by Mussolini, and that was the founding murder of the Italian dictatorship. Because Matteotti, the leader of the Italian socialists, was killed in 1924. He disappeared from Rome. He was one of the most famous popular figures in Rome, one of the most elegant figures in Rome. He was a political celebrity. He was with a high charisma. He was an international star, and one day he disappeared. And 4 weeks later, they found the body. You see a photography in the upper left side, how they found the photography. The photograph doesn't show us the corpse. He shows the hidden corpse, and he shows that one of the guy holds his hand like this. So I think this is even this is even more cruel than showing the corpse of Matteotti. This must have been a rotten, stinking flesh on the side of the street. So Aby Warburg comes there 5 years later. He drives to Orvieto. He sees where the material from the painting Raphael was painting. He sees it. Okay, it's true. The blood really came. He comes back and sees, okay, yeah, and the founding moment of the Italian dictatorship is also real. The corpse of Matteotti was really lying here. So the very easy message of this table is they're signing a treaty with a body who killed Matteotti. Is Mussolini a murderer? Well, Matteotti was killed, like, for example, Jesus was killed. Was a killing of Jesus murder? Some people say, and they blame, for example, the Jews. Was the killing of Matteotti a murder? Well, some people say, and they blame the fascists. So the knowledge he gives about this Lateran treatise is just to associate these things in a vague way, which means sometimes it may have been good to sign these treaties. Sometimes it may have been bad. So, and we have to train the movement of this polarity. I'm coming to an end now, really. Yeah. In 1975, a German historian, his name is Alfred Warburgs. I'm sorry, I didn't make this up. Yeah? His name is Alfred Warburgs. He was the first one to write a biography of the Warburgs. Yeah? And in 1975, he wrote a letter to a friend of him, Dr. Grubel. Yeah? And in this letter, he tells a story about the Warburgs. He knew the American Warburgs, which means all the brothers of Aby Warburg that went to America and survived in America. So, and he's telling a short story in this letter. Yeah? He said that one of the brothers of Aby Warburg, smaller brother, Felix, yeah, came up to Alfred Warburgs, yeah, and asked a question. Warum tun Sie in Deutschland nicht mehr zur Bekämpfung des Antisemitismus? Why don't you do in Germany more against anti-Semitism? Felix asked him in the 30s, before starting of the war. Yeah? So, and Warburgs said, well, the only organization that is able to compete with the Nazis would be the SPD, the Social Party of Germany. And he asked back, are you willing to have the Social Democrat Party in Germany? And Alfred Warburgs sagt that in that moment, damit endete das Gespräch und er ging segeln. Yeah? In that moment, our talk ended and Felix went sailing, taking a boat on the waves, which is he gave a vague reaction. Yeah? So if your law looks like this, for example, yeah, you have a lot of figures, very stable, standing there, yeah, sitting on chairs at a table. Yeah, you see here Niklas Luhmann in Recife, very well, let's say, well dressed, I would say. Yeah? Yeah? When your law looks like this, you may not need vague associations. Yeah? When your law is stable, when your society is stable, when your associations are stable, you may not need vague associations. When your law looks like this, yeah? Like a woman standing on a football, on a globe, on a ball, yeah? And a lot of wind going on, yeah? Then you may need vague associations. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Fabian. This is an insightful conference, a performance, I'd say. And it's a good example of a cultural analysis of law. It's a kind of analysis not common in Brazil and not common in Germany as well. It's a very insightful, interesting kind of analysis you presented today to react intending the audience, mainly the students here also. So I was wondering a question to start. And the question is it possible to take a photography of law? We can photograph law? No, if law is a system of norms in an abstract sense, as a normative order, as you should study at the university usually, not as a abstract system of norms in ideal heaven. But it is possible to take a photo of law if law has bodies, gestures, performance, and And your exposition conference showed a kind of analysis that focuses on law as a bodies, gestures, affections, like, for example, the mancipatio you mentioned. And I think this kind of analysis is very, very useful. I'd like to mention to you in Brazil, many decades, not too many, but some decades later, there was a kind of cell called fio do bigode. You take the mustache to make the deal. And we have nowadays the shaking hands. You agreed? Yes, I agreed. So we have many performances in law, but we don't understand or don't analyze this embodied law. This is a kind of extrapolation because you are studying images and photographies. But this analysis invites us to see our living as looking for pathos forming in our living, in our interactions. So I thought this is kind of a way of how this kind of art critique could explain or shed light on law. Yes, but at the same time, you know very well in Big B and also in our civil codes, unfortunately or not, the presence of a specific form to make a contract is an exception. We don't need the board performance to anymore in general to. But there are many other aspects of the life of law that could be explained with this kind of analysis. The rhetoric in the court, at the court. So we have a pathos form and so on. So I understood and I extrapolated your analysis to emphasize how the law can understand, can show about how art can explain law. But I'd like to know more how the specific of law can explain art, not only bringing themes to art, but how the form of law could explain some aspect of image or of a photograph. I don't know if you think, if you had think something about this kind of. I try to bring you to a polarity argument, you know. So you emphasize mainly how the art could explain law. Of course, there are a more strong claim that TAFL 78 and 79 is a kind of explanation of law. It's a legal, not a book, but a legal media in some sense, the TAFL 78 and 79. It's very interesting. The second point about vague association, yes, I think it's very productive, this concept. Perhaps there is a parallel to Deleuze's philosophy. There is the idea of external relations, not intrinsic relations. So in an assemblage, there are elements in external relations. And the idea of external is important because an element could be put in other different relations with rhizomatic relations. So I think it's productive to see these external relations, vague associations. I translate in trying to make a parallel. My question would be, I understand, and I think it's interesting to disclosure how polar objects works. Polarity is a very interesting idea, and a parenthesis, I think we could, there are your obsessions with Spencer Brown, Luhmann, this dualities, the laws of form. I think there is some kind of connections with your obsession, your encounter with polar objects and the Spencer Brown. I think I make a parallel also here. Well, to understand the polar objects is interesting, but I'd like to hear if this is if vague association is a synonym of polarity, or vague association is a genera, and the polarity is a kind of external relation or operation, but it's only one type of vague association, because an analysis crossing or an analysis of the Tafeln, all of them or some of them, we could to try vague associations, not only polarity, you know. There are rhizomatic connections between the Tafel. So we can make a placard with, not with Tafel 78 or 79, but a placard for your conference with another Tafel. No? So it's not a polarity, it's not a polar object, but it's a vague association. I'd like to hear more about this. Thank you very much. I think it's a good example for the students of a cultural analysis of law, as I understand, and very insightful. Thank you very much.
So now I have to think. I didn't think at the start. But now I think it was okay. So you stayed here. So because when you think at the beginning and then you say something and everybody leaves, then this strange lecturer is linked to the thing, and you think, oh, who is he thanking? They brought us this guy, or but now you stayed here. Now I can thank. So I would really first thank Samuel who brought me here, and Samuel is a part of he is an association, and he is a part of an association that I qualify as a Brazilian association, and I would really love to thank this specific kind of Brazilian associations. There are names in it, like for example Samuel. There's for example Melanie sitting here, she's working on anthropophagia and law. She's one of the scholars who work on anthropophagy and law. Then there's Ricardo Campos and João Mauricio Adeodato and Pedro Parini, who invited me to receive a few years before in a situation where I said I will never ever enter university again. And they said, well, Fabian, come to Brazil and maybe think about it. So the very easy idea was to move me from one place to another place for several times. And in Recife it was very important because my interest in Aby Warburg is a very old and long interest, but there I saw the links between the term Warburg always uses polarity, and he uses some verbs for it, like pendulum, the pendulum, or swinging. But as being in Recife and reading the Manifest on Anthropophagia and reading Eduardo Viveiros de Castro and his reading of Deleuze, I thought, okay, there is a very interesting associations. There's an important link and between Aby Warburg and Brazil. He has never been here, so I thought, okay, we have. I mean, he's very famous. Aby Warburg is famous everywhere, and every year he has another surprise coming up. Yeah, but I think, okay, I will take part. So I thank you very much for this. I thank you here for listening, for giving me your time. I was using a lot of your time. Thank you very much.
So we can open to the audience. Estamos gravando.
Thanks a lot for the presentation. I have two questions, very short, very simple. The first one, did Aby Warburg only mount all these tables, or and leave the interpretation to us, or did he also give some interpretation of what he was thinking about when he mounted all these tables? No. Because my impression is that it's not easy to understand this, why he did this. So, and the second question is, he was basically an art historian trying to show the legacy of the antique, going to modern times, to Renaissance. Was he himself also interested in law? Or is this something you are now bring this analysis of his ideas? Is this something that is brought to Aby Warburg as a person, or was he himself also interested in law?
Do I put something in that was not there before, or take something out that was already there before? This is the way I would translate it. So. I'm not sure if really Aby Warburg had a main profession. He, for example, described himself as banquier at several occasions. So sure, he was an art historian, but he was not only an art historian. And he was interested in law before 1869 and in everyday life. He had to be interested in law, as he is the heir to one of the biggest banks, first in Hamburg and then in Germany. So he has to deal with lawyers all the time and always questioning the other Melchior. Karl Melchior becomes closer to the family, and he's corresponding and always asking questions about the law as part of his everyday life. So, and after meeting with the other brother, Sully George Melchior, starting to buy legal books for the Bibliothek Warburg. For example, when his travel to Arizona became on the next level, he was in Kreuzlingen, which was an asylum, a total asylum. So he was diagnosed hard bipolarity and schizophrenia, and to get out of the clinic, he gave a lecture on the snake ritual, on the rain dance of the Hopi. So, and after he gave this lecture, so he's again in the year 1869. He's speaking about this journey, speaking about it. And then comes Fritz Sachsel, who was an assistant to Aby Warburg, just a few days later, and says, we have to invite somebody for your institution in Hamburg. Who do you suggest to invite? The first thing Aby Warburg now says, yeah, you have to invite a jurist. In this case, Konrad Borchling, who was Germanist in Hamburg, working on symbolische Handlungen im Recht. No? So he again, in this very close neighborhood to dealing with the snakes, he's like, okay, when we deal with the snakes, we have to deal with the lawyers. Yeah? When we deal with the snakes, we have to deal with the law. Yeah? So there's always this very close this is very important, that nearly everything in Warburg's thinking, it's about measure. So it's not just a question of yes or no, but how far can we push the yes and how far can we push the no? The no. Is there a relation between law and art? The question is, what's the distance between law and art, or what does distance mean? Is it such a distance? So is the one thing higher, the other thing lower? For example, these are the questions. So he was always interested in law, and what's very interesting. So when he went to Rome, for example, in 1929, in his Zettelkasten, there are a lot of notes on law, bibliographical notes. He reads the newest and I would say most interesting law theory of the early 20s. He also has the books of Carl Schmitt and Hans Kelsen, who are now the most famous, let's say, theorists of this time. But what has he in his bibliothek? He has Adolf Reinach in his bibliothek, who has written a phenomenology of the law that is centered about the idea of the Akt and the Versprechen. And Adolf Reinach was one of the young phenomenologists. So he was a revolutionary guy, not trying to say we have to delimit the law. We have to take the limits away from the law. So not in this sense, not an anarchistic figure. But he used the phenomenology of law to make it, let's change, movable, curvable, applicable in a way. This is the best word, of eine wendige Art und Weise. And you have to know that when Germans talk about Wendigkeit, this is not a good sign. When you're in the law exam, especially in the second state exam, and you're contested in the talk, and the other guy on the desk, so you're the student, and I'm asking you questions, and then at the end, this figure who will give you the note, who will note you, who will measure you, says, wow, Sie sind ja ganz schön wendig. You can be sure you will get not the best note. You have to present yourself as stable. So this is really, they are contesting the law culture, especially the German law culture. We always link this to Jewish culture, as in the Roman law, there's always already written that the Jews are interpreting absurd. This is already the idea of Roman law. So they give again an interpretation, and then another interpretation, and then another interpretation. So this is really already part of the maybe of the Jewish culture, but it's not only a part of the Jewish. I think we cannot say this is the own identity. This is not a question of identities. It's like Eduardo Viveros de Castro would say, this is a question of relational affinities. And Warburg is affinitive to to this. So if you're looking for one term that links the art or the knowledge of Aby Warburg with the knowledge of law, I would say this is the term norm or symbol. So he's thinking about the techniques of normativity and the techniques of symbols. He calls it Distanz schaffen, nicht drawing a distinction, but this is a very interesting question, how you can translate Distanz schaffen. Creating a distance, the distance already there. So coping with the distance, maybe. This is the central term for your question. Does he also interpret these tables? These tables are interpretations. These tables are language. They are graphics, which means they are writing. He is writing these tables. These are written tables, but this is a form of writing. That's another form of writing. No? So we link when we talk about Walter Benjamin, for example, who had a close relationship to Aby Warburg. Walter Benjamin uses the phrase "reading what is not written yet," so it's not ready to be scripture yet. Someday it will be scripture in the tense of language, but we're not yet there. And the graphics that Aby Warburgs use are a form of writing that I would describe as a weak form of writing, a lower form of writing, a minor form of writing. It's a lower form of reading, a lower form of a minor form of reading, and a weak form of reading. A small form of writing and a small form of reading. Small not by size, but small in the sense of close and affinitive to minor, lower, and weak techniques. And why small? Why weak? Because everything stays still exchangeable. It's exchangeable. So it has not the high value where things become inexchangeable, unersetzlich, exclusive. So I would say the tables themselves are a form of writing, interpretation, reading, rationality. But as you asked, he also writes texts about it, and he writes an introduction to this table. So, but it's a very short introduction. And he gives a general overview over these tables. Very important to understand these tables is, for example, a letter from 1929 that he writes to his brothers, because he again needs money for his institution, and he's not a shareholder of the bank, so the brothers have to finance him. And in this letter to the brothers, that he calls this letter vor dem Kuratorium. So he uses a phrase we know from Kafka, like vor dem Gesetz, vor dem Kuratorium. I think he's making a joke here. And he describes, for example, his thoughts, his theory of polarity. And in this letter he says, when I think of polarity, I think of movement in a historical sense, in a geographical sense, in a psychological sense, and in a social sense. So this movement goes from far times to close times, from close times to far times, from far places to close places, from psychology that is polar. And I don't know if you have dealt already with bipolarity. If you want to have one of the best descriptions of polarity in a psychological sense, I would recommend you a book by Thomas Melle that is called Die Welt im Rücken. That's why I mentioned him, the Atlas. And Thomas Melle describes the polar character, which Warburg himself was, as the alienated character, because one day he says something, and he's in the signs, and all the world is a sign for him. He can read everything, he can talk to everybody, Yeah, he can associate everything with everything. He is associated with everything, and the next day, everything's closed. Yeah, he can't read his own writings anymore. So he can't even say, "Is this writing?" Yeah, yeah. He can't understand his own words. Yeah, so and this is a movement that has to do with things coming close. So close that you have the idea, I'm diving in, and then suddenly it gets far away. So there are a lot of writings like these letters, the introduction, but if you want, for example, an easy explanation of the tables, the diary is important of the Kulturwissenschaftliche Bibliothek Warburg. It's mostly so important because of the writings of Gertrude Bing in this diary. They share the diary, and she gives the best description for what we see on table 78. This is mainly, I would even tend to say Warburg designs table 78 like he designed it because of the writings of Gertrude Bing. So it's mostly her table. It's not Warburg's table, it's Bing's table, 78. It's an all-male panel, as you have seen, no? And on table 78, there are only guys on it. You don't see one woman. It's an all-male panel, no? But it's designed by Gertrude Bing. So, no? We may say the woman is there, even if we don't see her. So the theory of images of Aby Warburg is so very interesting because it's a counter theory to Roman theories and to theories of Pierre Legendre. In Roman theory that you find, for example, in the writings of Plinius, or in Roman theory that you find in the writings of Pierre Legendre, which is our contemporary. He just died a few months ago. Yeah? The idea has one function. It has to master absence by presence. This is the task of the image. Yeah? Mastering absence by presence, mastering the abyss by presence, or mastering the abyss by a bridge. Yeah? So if we don't have an image, yeah, we're not humans anymore. We become animals. This, for example. So we're losing the law itself. This is a very Roman idea. Plinius gives this idea by giving us the story of the invention of painting. He said the painting was invented by a woman. Yeah, her lover was leaving, and before he left, she threw the shadow of her lover to the wall, and drawing a line around it. So the guy is gone, but the lines are still there. You're mastering absence by presence. You're mastering love. You're mastering war, because the young guy is maybe going to war. He will never come back. He will be dead. But you don't get crazy because you say, yeah, I still have the memory. I still have the lines here. The lines are still there. So this is a very Roman idea. This is a very Legendre idea. This is a very Roman Catholic idea. And this is not Warburg's idea. The images don't have the task to master absence by presence. They have the task to operationalize movement. And for example, so the invention of images for Aby Warburg is a completely different story. You see it here. The first images you see on Tafel 1, table number 1. Where's table number 1? Where did I have table number 1? Yeah. Table number 1, for example, you see a picture with the stars, with the moon and the planets. So the first images were the stars, the constellations. And what do these images do when you see them? How do they move? They move like this over the sky. This is the way they move. And this is why we have images and need images, because we have to get along with something that goes like this. The stars, when we don't see them, they're not absent. We don't have to master the absence. They're just in another distance. This is just a question of measure. This is not a question of life and death. This is a question of the calendar. So it's a question: is it June or is it February? But it's not a question of life and death. And this is a completely different idea, and I think it's very witty, especially in societies that describe themselves as unstable. We now have discussions in Germany going on where when people say to you, you're polarizing, which means they want to get you out of the discussion. So you're suddenly responsible for the movement of differences. You are creating the differences. You're polarizing. No, the differences are moving. So and why should somebody take the responsibility and the other? So the term polarizing, it's a bad term when you read it in a newspaper, when you read it, hear it in a discussion at the law faculty. Don't polarize. Come on, don't polarize. And Aby Warburg would say, no, stop. We have to know the techniques of polarizing, because the things are moving. Everything is moving in a way that is predictable, but it's not easy predictable, and maybe it's only predictable by techniques that are lower techniques, minor techniques, weaker techniques, and they are lower, minor, and weak because everything is exchangeable. So this is really, this is why I'm dealing with this guy. That's a guy for polarized times.
Yeah, thank you. Well, we have a last question by Moacir.
Thank you for your lecture. I really liked it, but I'm very puzzled. So I feel perhaps certain ambiguity in your talk, and I would like to understand better, or understand simply. So on one side you say, okay, the tables are to show, to explain, and they are the begin, so they are a simple writing, not yet written. But on the other side, when you talk about polarity, I have the feeling that they are not to show unstable knowledge, like a chemical periodic table of elements, where the knowledge is already there, and you have the system of showing this knowledge. But the polarity is to create knowledge, a movement of creating knowledge that take the tables as a basis for this creation of knowledge. So like an open interpretation, not completely open, but some polarity to as the beginning of the creation of knowledge, and not just the exhibition or the showing of a knowledge that is already there. So that's my question. Is there a knowledge there, or is there not a knowledge there? So thank you.
That's a question of distance, of measure and distance. No? So how far is the knowledge? How close is the knowledge? So I would really say this is not about showing is not the best term. It's not the term I would use when I talk about Warburg. Explaining would also be, we have to avoid showing and explaining. In this case, we have to avoid the idea that this is a theory about the visibility of law. Like, for example, Horst Bredekamp said. I mean, Horst Bredekamp, he has also witnessed this strange talk between Melchior and Aby Warburg, and they say, yeah, we're on this ship, and in this short talk they have about emancipatio, the theory of visibility. This is not about a theory about the visibility, because sometimes you don't see the stars. This may be linked to the term vis, but vis also like in wissen and vis, but vis is also the force, the pouvoir, the puissance. It's the energy. We may say these tables are about visuality if we don't associate visuality with just with seeing. yeah, but with the energy it takes to move the bodies. Then I'm fine with this. I say, yeah, this is not about showing and explaining. So to say it's open, yes, but the limits don't disappear. So the language gets really hard to at this moment. But sure, it's mostly it's a history of things of inconsistency. For example, Unbeständigkeit. And this inconsistency is not empty. Samuel was mentioning Deleuze, and it's very hard for me to talk about Deleuze because I'm not a professional Deleuze reader. But if I would follow the links, I would follow those passages in the work of Deleuze, where Deleuze writes about Gabriel Tarde. There's a very interesting passages in the work of Differenz und Wiederholung on Gabriel Tarde, a French sociologist, a jurist, like Luhmann, but a contemporary of Aby Warburg. And his theory of associations, we call society, is a theory about Kreisen. Kreisen, I was called, and which he understands as mimetics, and so this is the area that tends to. It's mimetics. It's Kreisen. It's like blurring. Yeah, it's irritating. Yeah, but it is always. It shall never lose the precision. It shall never have the idea that the knowledge is empty in it.
Our scientific manager has a privilege. So, do you want last question?
Thank you, Fabian. I'll try to be brief. These are two questions or comments. First, it also has to do with Deleuze, of course, and post-structuralism as a whole. If you could talk a little bit about polarity and binarism and this criticism on binarism that post-structuralism is very fond of. Because if I understand well, polarity is not so much about the two moments, but the movement. So that would be maybe the start of the answer. But I would like to hear you about the difference between polarity and binarism. And the second is more like a difficulty. I really like Samuel's comment, also trying to think this from a law perspective. And then I will dare to speak about the law here at this faculty. So in my very naive opinion, so the law, the written law must be clear. So this, I imagine, although there is space for interpretation, but the law must be clear. Otherwise, you have a problem, right? So for him, it's different. So
no.
Okay. Maybe because of the danger that you mentioned in the end of your presentation, the context, right? With that's not irrelevant. Mussolini and fascism and him being Jewish. And also, I really like that you said that the painter was invented by a woman. There are groups that cannot be clear about what they're saying in specific context. There is a review from Brecht about Kafka from 1933, and Brecht says that Kafka writes literature like the police may be listening or reading it later. That's why it's so visible and at the same time hard to understand what he's saying. I also remembered Kafka on the last image of the justice standing over the ball, as you said. In the process, there's Titorelli, the painter of the judges, and then K, the protagonist, is criticizing him because he paints the god of justice as the god of hunt, as Diana. And then he says, that's not possible because the law must be stable, otherwise the balance. So for me, it's very difficult to think of law and moving images at the same time. Because the law should be stable, or even if there's room for interpretation. And then you also talk about visibility. but when I see these tables, they're more, in my impression, showing an unconscious of the law, or how the deals are made around the law than the law itself. I was just trying to follow Samuel's provocation and how to think such a moving theory and the law as it's practiced. Thank you.
Of course.
And a follow-up question. If the connections are not stable, they are vague. When or how Aby Warburg define the connections? It's just for determined time or context, so I think it's very connected to yours. Thank you, Fabian.
Yeah. 5 minutes, yeah. Yeah, this were a lot of questions now. May we talk about the relation between Aby Warburg and post-structuralism later? Yeah. I cannot say anything intelligent at this moment about this. But really, like you already said, the polarity in a Warburgian sense, I would insist on that this may be linked to binarities in dualism, but it doesn't have to. It only linked to dualism and binarity if you distinction you draw is moved in this special way I explained it, or is moved and moving. So to the line goes a movement in which turns and tilts, swings, lifts, and slants occur. So this, I wouldn't describe this as unclear. It's not an unclear distinction then. It's a clear distinction. It's a precise distinction. The distinction cannot be denied. You may say, yeah, it's more than one distinction. But this is not so important if you count it as one or as two or as many, because it doesn't get more. It may get more intense and less intense, but so he's what Aby Warburg does is not about pluralism, for example. This is really always about, I would say, movement. So we just didn't think further about what movement is. Is movement a technique of the beings that we suppose to have a soul, or is it a physical thing? In Warburg's sense, it's maybe all of that. So maybe it's energeia is maybe the term. That I describe here as movement, and he describes it as Bewegung. But this is we have to think more about what this movement is. But it's polar, so it's polar, and you can extract this from the writings of Aby Warburg, because he, in all his texts that he's published, in all the texts he's not, always the term polarity or polar occurs at the important places, and more and more by the techniques he uses. And especially I would insist on that the way I showed you this, that it's important to understand that he puts pictures of one object several times on the table, turning the object around. Using the table as something that may be turned around, or using the fact that you're in front of the object and you yourself may turn around in front of the object. The protocol of using images, seeing is just a part of this protocol. Moving your body is the other part of using images. Moving your body and moving another body. Being moved by a body. These are all the techniques of using images. You can be blind to use images. No, you don't have to have eyes to use images. This is protocol, image protocol in the Warburgian sense. Not only in the Warburgian sense. So yeah, and what about the stability? Well, I would say this is simply not true. Law has to be stable. and it is not stable. And to be honest, a lot of people know this, and this is nothing. I would be also always very careful to say that some thinking is not taking place, no? Or that we need more thinking in this direction, because I think all the thinking exists and happens, not only everywhere and at the same place at the same time. So there are millions of literature about of writings, of images about law that is not stable. Look in my back. This is a drawing from 1534. We don't know the name of the guy who made this. So he's showing a female figure, and in the text you see in this picture, this figure, there is a text that speaks in the first person. So it's maybe the voice of this woman talking, and she says, Glück der Gerechtigkeit werde ich genannt. Fortune of justice I am called. So this is the drawer. Does he mix fortune and law? Does he make the relationship between fortune and law more heterogeneous than it was before, or does he make it more homogeneous than it was before? Because he takes it all in one figure. We even can't say if he's making things more heterogeneous or more homogeneous. He's somehow making both, where he's crossing figures that at other parts we tend to place at different times, where Fortuna, a female figure, and Fortuna is maybe linked to economy. It's linked to sports. It's mostly linked to football, for example, proletarian sport. Fortuna Düsseldorf, for example, and it's linked sure to economy, but to law, it's Justitia. So, but here we have Fortuna Justitiae, Glück der Gerechtigkeit, and I would say we can't say if he mixes it or he's not mixing something. What this movement of crossing? To at every place, at every time, movable, unstable law is going on. That's where, when you're a lawyer, make your money from. That the law is that moving. If so, yeah. So, yeah.
Okay, thank you very much, Fabian. I'd like to thank also Peter Bierle, Instituto Ibérico de Berlim, Moacir Novaes, Fefeleche, Tomás Amorim, our academic manager of Mecila. Peter and Moacir are the current directors of Mecila, and Melanie Metzen, our event coordinator. Thank you very much. É isso. Obrigado. Oh, excuse me. I have information to the doctoral students to prepare a paper up to 10 page about the annual meeting, and send the paper to Moacir until Monday. Okay, thank you very much.